Welcome to sequel number 59 of the Church of Uganda. At 150 years, a celebration of our history, both our country and our church. And in today's sequel, we want to dig deeper into the murder of Mwanga II in 1902 and its subsequent cover-up, vis-a-vis the changes in the borderline of Uganda for the creation of the State of Israel. And therefore, let us begin. I'm the author, Christopher Amos Chikomeko Ntambi, who welcomes you for tonight's sequel. Now, there has been researchers and who, like me, have landed on the details of what happened to Mwanga II in the Seychelles. As a matter of fact, one of these many researchers was a university student, while the other I know so well is a book author, just like myself. And I want to avoid mentioning their names because, as I said, they landed on this very research, but they got scared. They never went ahead. Now, the student was writing a dissertation in 2004. And on page 196 of that dissertation, he was, I think, worried about his professors. What would they say if he revealed these very deep secrets? So he shielded himself by quoting a source. And the source he quoted was Sistanino. According to that dissertation, Sistanino had stated that Mwanga II died on the 21st of May in 1902. Now, of course, that dissertation doesn't agree with my own research, although it agrees on the year. The date doesn't agree, although in the same year, and that attracted my attention. Now, there is no doubt that Sistanino had a margin of error in his research. And my fear is that because the official date of the death of Mwanga is 8th May 1903, and for him it's 21 May 1902, did he want to align the month? You know, some researchers do this. You end up thinking that what you have found is wrong and you try to correct it because the correct date is May, and so he changed the date. Anyway, I don't know, but that is his dissertation. The only other author, and that one I'll quote by name because for him he has written a book, is called Cedric Pilford, and the book he wrote is called Eating Uganda from Christianity to Conquest. I think you see what I mean when I say that we are celebrating a church vis-a-vis our country. So even this writer, I'll repeat the title of his book, Eating Uganda. That is the biggest title on the book, and then the smaller title is From Christianity to Conquest. Now, he boldly stated without fear that Mwanga II died in 1902. He did not give the actual date. So you see, my research is not alone. Why did they get scared into going deeper? I have no idea. However, on page 163 of his book, and by the way, this book is new. He published it in 1999. The publishers are called Ituri Publications. He steered clear of the rest of what he should have written about the death of Mwanga 1902. That one I noticed very much. Fine. I'll leave those who have written and go to our own here. And I'll name I'll give names. The Reverend Bartolomeo Zimbe wrote a book. He wrote a book in 1939, and this book is basically his memoirs. He called the book Buganda and the King. He even gives us a picture or a photograph of himself, so that we have no doubt about Bartolomeo Zimbe. Now, Bartolomeo Zimbe's memoirs are very interesting because he gives a rich history of the time of the Uganda matters. He gives a rich history of the civil wars. He gives a very rich history of the Mwanga reign. And one thing I noted that in his book, not once does he mention that Mwanga II was gay. Steered clear of that. When he's beginning his book, at the beginning of his book, he thanks the Kabaka then, Chwa II, for the help he gave him in publishing the book. So that means the Kabaka was aware that the book was coming up and he supported him. He however thanks the Reverend Y. Sewagaba, who he says that he was dictating as Reverend Sewagaba was writing. So that it was a very good work that Sewagaba did, and he was appreciated in the book. Then I arrive at the publisher. The person then who would publish would also do the InDesign, and he would do the setup of the book, layout of the book, and he was named and appreciated in the book. He was J.M. Naruma. Those are appreciated, and I want to thank the Reverend Bartolomeo Zimbe intestate for this great book. It has given us a lot of rich history. I really want to thank him intestate. However, now I want to reach on the time of the Mwanga, because that's where he concluded his book. He writes about the story of the war in which Mwanga and Kabaliga were arrested very accurately. He mentioned that it was a war. It was not a walkover, like some writers want us to believe, and researchers. And on page 317 of his book, he mentions that after their arrest, they were taken to Kismayo, Somaliland. And now that made me very happy about Bartolomeo Zimbe. It means he knew what he was writing about. And to me, it means that he was an insider for him to know this, because even modern writers would write a book and tell you Mwanga was exiled, and from Mengo to Mombasa to Zanzibar to the Seychelles. They have never known about Kismayo, apart from a few, of course, serious researchers. Now, Bartolomeo Zimbe on the same page mentions Salima and Bakazi Kubao being the two women, the two wives that went with Mwanga as his wives, confirming that Mwanga has never been gay. The European missionaries have their own intentions in soiling him. Now, this is Bartolomeo Zimbe, and it is his story. He knows about Kismayo, which is very surprising. On page 327 of Bartolomeo Zimbe's book, Buganda and the King, he writes about the baptizing of Mwanga in the Seychelles Island. But he gives it one line. He's very happy. He says, oh, Mwanga gets baptized as a Christian, and that he's given the name Daniel. And that's all. That's all he mentions about the baptism. He doesn't mention that he was around at that baptism. He doesn't mention that he had been actually given a brief to go and baptize Mwanga on the Seychelles Island by the government in Uganda, by the government of Buganda and the government of Uganda. He doesn't even mention that he had a group with him, or that he ever visited Zanzibar for that matter, or that he even accompanied Sir Apollo Kagwa to Mombasa, where Sir Apollo Kagwa was going to England. Unfortunately, Ham Mukasa gives those details in his book. Sir Apollo Kagwa discovers England, or discovers Britain. Although Ham Mukasa, as I told you, doesn't give details of the journey to Zanzibar. He simply says they were going to Zanzibar, but he doesn't mention what they did in Zanzibar, doesn't mention that Bartolomeo baptized Mwanga, or that he does not. Actually, Bartholomew did not baptize Mwanga. Mwanga refused. For those of you who have been following my sequels. And so this is very important for me, that Bartholomew in the whole book, without giving details, he mentions that Daniel was baptized. He doesn't give us the date. He simply says he was baptized, the name Daniel. To me, you cannot just write that from nowhere. There is, and actually it's from nowhere, because he was busy concluding the book when he gave these details. I don't know whether somebody reminded him that it's very important that you mention this, that Daniel was baptized. He was an eyewitness to the baptism of Daniel. And so he put this in one line. Then, still on the same page, I wonder whether I gave you the page number. It's 327. For those of you who will ever be lucky to see or to land on this Bartholomew's book, Buganda and the King. It's written in Luganda. I may be describing these things in this language, but the book is in Luganda. He then mentions that the Kabaka died in 1903. He repeats that twice on different pages. And the second time he mentions, he actually gives the date. He says, Mwanga died on the 8th of May, 1903. Now, he does not give details. He simply writes like somebody being very saddened by what is happening, that he died, we lost him on the 8th of May, 1903. And that's it. Actually, the book comes to an end after he writes those events. He concludes his memoirs, which is very surprising because he was writing in 1939. I think we should have enjoyed more of his memoirs to almost that time. But he stopped at the death of Mwanga. When did he die? He died on the 31st of December 1946, and I'm talking about Bartholomew Zimbe. The man lived a very long life, dying on the very last day of the year 1946. So, here is another native writer who found it fit to deny us what we should have enjoyed to read about. However, research has discovered that he, the Reverend Bartholomew Zimbe, was very much involved in the elimination of Kabaka Mwanga. He may not have got into the actual details. He may not have been able to pull the trigger. He may not have been able to know the minute details of the whole scheme, but he must have asked, why are we baptizing Mwanga? Whatever they told him, I don't know. Whether he really knew or he didn't know, I also don't know. But here he is. He is covering up his visit to the Seychelles. If he had nothing to hide, why did he not tell us about his visit to the Seychelles? Why did he not give details about the baptism of Mwanga? And you just give us a line. That makes him a prime suspect in this whole thing. Then the two women, Salima and Bakazi Kubao, are very rich in Bartholomew's book. He mentions these two women as wives of Mwanga, but he does not mention the baby water. He doesn't. As a matter of fact, we get a fuller name. This Mbakazi Kubao was also called Joyce. He was also called Mwana Omu. So she was Joyce, Mwana Omu, Mbakazi Kubao. In October, the 4th of October 1902, without any delay, the Seychelles government released the telegraph announcing that Mwanga II was terminally ill. At first, very far away, the telegraph is sent, and it is signed by who? By the governor stroke administrator Ernest B.S. Escott. He's sending this paragraph to the British Colonial Secretary, Joseph Chamberlain, in London. And he sends a copy of the same telegraph to the governor in Uganda, Lieutenant Colonel James Sandler. He's also cabled. Now, listen to this very carefully. This telegram has a copy still available at the Uganda National Archives, almost 120 years later. I have personally seen it. I have personally read it. Both dispatches, the dispatch to London and the dispatch to Entebbe. And because this was a dispatch to Entebbe, that's how now the Uganda National Archives have a copy. So there was no need for me to look for a copy in the National Archives at Surrey. I already had seen a copy at the Uganda National Archives. That what? Mwanga is terminally ill, if you know what that means. The telegraph is dated the 4th of October, 1902. Now, in October 1902, the World Congress of Jews had a chairman, and his name was Theodore Herzl. In October 1902, he met Secretary of State for the Colonies, Joseph Chamberlain, in London. And the chairman of the World Congress of Jews, Mr. Theodore Herzl, was told that a Jewish settlement, which is autonomous for Jews, had been found. But certain laws had to be amended for that settlement to be created for the creation of the State of Israel. And so, before we go to find out what was the response of the chairman of the World Congress of Jews in 1902, let's find out exactly what was that laws that had to be changed. What were those laws that had to be changed? And that is what is now called the 1902 Uganda Order in Council. And we will be able to internalize what this was in sequel number 60. May the good Lord bless us all.